What is going on, everybody? Happy Thursday night. Chandler here from VC Variety. I'm joined by my good friend Brian and the one and only Brad Martin from Green Mountain Metal Detecting. How's it going, man?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I am so excited to talk to you about metal detecting and everything. It's going to be a great night.
Well, I'm certainly more than happy to have you here. I'm sure Brian's over the moon as well. We're super
Yep.
excited to have you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your week to join us here. I mean, it
My
really means
pleasure.
a lot.
My pleasure.
Want to say hi to everybody. Everybody, Detector Ben. My mom's in here. Hi, Mom. How are you? If anyone has any questions at any point throughout the night, we're going to do our best to take as many questions from the comments as we can, and we'll do our best to answer them. If we miss it, maybe just say it one more time. Don't spam us. Otherwise, we might have to take some action. Brian, floor is yours. I'll let you start things off, sir.
Well, I think I wanted to kind of go backwards in time. I know I first learned of you, I guess, accidentally through YouTube. It was kind of a next to play video, and I started watching your format, and I liked the cinematography and the music, and really overall the fact that you brought the history into everything that you found. The site, beforehand you'd give a little bit of a history on the site, and hope to find something that tied into it.
Yeah,
Can
sure.
you kind of talk to how you got to that point as far as a YouTuber?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of an embarrassing story because in the beginning, I had a lot of luck right away. I had the first maybe half a dozen sites that I got permission to were amazing. I was finding tons of stuff, and it was really easy to make kind of long videos, finding silver coins, big old large cents, amazing stuff. And then as I started kind of continuing in the hobby, we realized, it's not like that every time. In fact, it's rarely like that. And as time went on, I wanted to kind of continue making these videos, and that these permissions that I was getting were really not producing a lot of like treasure. And so I was kind of put into the position where if I want to make like 15-minute videos, I'm going to have to like start filling this thing up with other stuff. And so how do I make my videos longer? And the first step I took to start doing that was to start kind of filming B-roll, start filming my surroundings, because a lot of the places that I go are truly, truly beautiful. And I wasn't capturing any of that. I was pointing the camera at the ground, and the focus was the things I was finding. So I started kind of opening it up and explaining where I was and talking about the local flora and fauna. And people kind of started reacting to that. People kind of like that. So I started including more of it. And then you start finding things that have attachments to actual people. You find coins, they made millions and millions of those. Who knows who it belonged to? But you start finding articles of clothing, things like shoe buckles, things that have names on them, things that have places on them. And you can start connecting those things to the people that owned them. And that's when I really started that started clicking with me, where these things actually belonged to people. And sometimes they had really interesting stories. So I should probably start including that in the videos. And again, people started reacting to that. People seem to enjoy it. So that's kind of where I am now with my videos, is I'm trying to include as much of the story of the people as I can, while also including kind of the beauty of the places that I'm in.
That's
I think
really
that's
cool.
that's what draws people in. I know one of my favorite things to find is something that's monogrammed. I can actually
Sure.
tie to a site.
Yeah.
Not to say anything bad about people that do videos and they shoot, here's my find, be back to the next find, here's my next find. But if you can just tie that personal, bit of history in, that's great. So.
Yeah, and I think that those are just kind of two different things. I think the way I started, and a lot the kind of videos a lot of folks make now on YouTube, is when you go, you get excited about stuff you find, and you're like, I gotta film this. So I not only can watch it later, but I think other people might be excited to watch this too. And you're not trying to make a project. You're not trying to make like a beginning, middle, end type story of a video. You're just capturing yourself going on this little adventure and finding cool stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. I have videos from very, very early on that I still watch every once in a while, watching videos of finding my first large cent or finding my first silver coin and stuff. And I've probably watched all of those videos 100 times because I was so excited and you kind of relive that excitement a little bit. And I think there's nothing wrong with making videos that are very much just kind of pointing you at the ground and being excited about finding stuff. That's kind of what the hobby's all about.
Mm-hmm. What would you say as far as on a personal level of what you find? Are you more of a coin hunter or relic? You seem like you like the relics more. I mean, we
Well,
kind of just talked about that, but I mean, as far as like when you go out to a new site, are you saying I'd rather find a relic than a coin here, or is it just kind of varies per site?
It definitely varies per site, and it varies per object. And it's always relative too, right? When I first kind of really started in the hobby, a large cent would get me so excited. Like, this is something I never knew existed, and there's such a big piece of copper, and they're so old, from the 1800s. But then you find a couple hundred of them, and it's like, you want to be really excited about it still, because I know that there's like more than half of the country that just can't find them, right? Because they're not in the ground where you folks are. And but it's one of those things where you find a lot of them, so it's hard to get excited about them. And I went to Europe a couple weeks ago, and I'm finding coins from like the 3rd century, and the buddy who brought me, he's like, "Oh yeah, it's another Roman coin." And it's just like, what? Like, I'm like flipping out. I'm like, "Oh, this is so old. This is amazing." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I've got 100 of them." But it's all relative, and it's very easy to get excited about wheat pennies, and a lot of people do, because that's kind of the oldest thing that they can get their hands on. But when I go to a place, the thing that gets me most excited now is stuff that I've never found before. If I find silver coins, that's great. If I find jewelry, that's great. But if it's something like really interesting, something that's going to teach me something new, something that's directly related, something like that's monogrammed, that would get me super excited. Really anything that I'm unfamiliar with, and I get to kind of go down a journey of research and finding out information that I didn't know before.
Yeah, one of the things that excuse me, that Brian and I, have kind of discussed before too is, finding so many things in Michigan, where we're from, is there's such a variety, right? So you can find wheat pennies and Roosevelt dimes in one yard, and you can go to another yard and you can pull out 3 or 4 large cents, some seeded dimes. And
Sure,
Michigan is really one of the best places for variety, at least in my opinion. I'm sure Brian, you would agree with me on that.
Yeah, for the most part. I know it's kind of interesting, and there's a reason. Obviously, you go from Europe, you work from right to left, and what, like you were saying earlier about the East Coast. We'd be excited to find a pine shilling, right, or any old New Jersey copper, that sort of thing, because you're not going to find that in Michigan,
right?
You get further out to the West Coast, and I've got a good friend. She talks all the time about how they'd be happy just to break out of the 1900s with a coin.
Sure.
So, like you said, it's all relative. But,
yeah.
As far as variety, we had enough trade early on. The French coming down through Canada.
Oh, sure.
Whatnot, that we do. We do break into the 1700s occasionally. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure that it's super exciting, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I found my first 1700s coin. I've actually been detecting 35 years, and I found my oldest coin just last year.
Oh, nice.
And that is so uncommon here.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know, Chandler's found one. I know a couple people that have, but so it's that anticipation of maybe breaking into the 1700s, every time you go out.
That's one of the things that, kind of draws us back, right? Because, if you go out and you have a great day, you're like, wow, I found so much cool stuff. It's old. I've never found this stuff before. When am I going to find it again? When am I going to have this special feeling of, wow, mind blown again? I mean, for me personally, at least, that's one of the things that always has me coming back to it and wanting to go out and expand and find as many sites as I can. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, kind of doing the research ahead of time, it can be just as fun as going out and doing the field work, like figuring out like the eureka moment of discovering a new place and like realizing that it's a place that you could potentially go metal detecting and find stuff. It's just like that feeling of like, wow, yeah, let's go do it. Like the anticipation of going is sometimes just as much fun as actually finding the stuff.
Oh yeah, I know. I have a site that after talking with a couple of the landowners down there, they're like, "Well, if you even walk up to the house and ask the guy, you might take one to the head." And I was like, "Okay, well, maybe we won't do that." But it was an old sawmill. It was a Civil War general. He came back, started his own sawmill, had a store, had a post office, and all that. Here in this one field, there's 5 or 6 home sites along with all that stuff. I can't imagine what's in the ground there. I mean, I
Yeah.
stay awake at night thinking about what could be in there. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I've definitely had nights where I've had hard time sleeping the night before going to a new place, and um, that feeling's great. It's like Christmas, you know?
There's
What
no
was
better
your
feeling in the world.
what was your progression? I mean, in Michigan, I think a lot of people start out detecting. They go to parks, maybe some tot lots. Then they might migrate to knocking doors at old 1900s houses. And
Sure.
like Chandler and myself, we're all out in the fields now. We're looking at home sites that are gone in the middle of a cornfield or
Right.
whatnot. And you're out in the middle of the woods most of the time. Is that the same progression for you, or?
Yeah, I kind of had a strange beginning because I got my first metal detector when I was very young. I got it for Christmas. I didn't ask for it. It was like, from Santa. And you Nebraska is very similar to Vermont in that if you get a metal detector for Christmas, like you're not going to be using it until May. And it kind of got put in the closet and I forgot about it for 15 years. And my wife and I had bought our first home. It was a fixer-upper, happened to be built in 1850. And for all of its problems, its leaky stone basement and the floors that looked like this, um, it was built in 1850. So I got a mercury dime in my pocket change, and I was like, it was the first time I was like slapped in the face, like, whoa, there's like silver coins, and I started kind of going down this rabbit hole of thinking about finding treasure. And I was like, I've got a metal detector at my parents' house, and I went and I got it, and it was Radio Shack Bounty Hunter. It was like the cheapest one you could buy in 1990, and I brought it out my backyard, and the first thing I found was another mercury dime, and I was like, this is going to be easy. Like this is great, you know. And in my own backyard, I was finding my first pre 1900 Indian head penny, and I was finding a ton of really cool relics. I found like an ice skate from the 1800s. I found a police button from the 1800s, and
Wow.
that really like got me. I was hooked. I was like really excited about it. Every minute of every day, all I wanted to do was go metal detecting. In fact, in my own backyard, I actually ran lines. I pulled lines, string, and like gridded out my whole backyard. I went when it was dry. I went when it was wet. I got everything out of that yard. And then through the grapevine, I have a friend who's involved in electronics and audio electronics specifically, and he happened to live he was renting a house that was it was a slave house in Massachusetts at part of this large complex. And he got me and my buddy Eddie permission to metal detect there was a mansion. And we were there for 20 minutes. And I found 2 Walking Liberty $50. I found a silver Russian ruble. It was like this big. And Indian head pennies with jewelry. And we were just like, we're gonna have to start filming this because this is crazy. Like, why doesn't everybody do this? Of course, it's not always like that. Like
Right.
as I mentioned, I had a lot of success in the first 2 months of starting the hobby. I don't think it's ever been that good. But then speaking with my dad, and I have a lot of farmers that are in my little town. They own a lot of forested land, and they're like, there's homes up in there that aren't occupied anymore. It's just stone holes. I remember seeing them growing up with my dad, deer hunting and stuff. And then the first time I went to a cellar hole on my buddy Jeff's family's property up in the woods, and there was like no trash. There was nothing modern like past 1900s. So everything you find, every time your metal detector beeps, it's from before 1900. And I was like, this is the best, right? You're not finding pop tops, you're not finding pull tabs, you're not finding any of that stuff. Occasional shotgun shell, but that was like the best for me, and I've never stopped kind of doing that. It's just my favorite. I love being in the woods. I love the adventure of getting up into the mountains. I love finding stuff easily without modern trash. And I've definitely metal detected tons of fields. But I sound like a baby, but I just get so bored, like walking lanes, it's just like, I have, my attention span is too short, I guess. I enjoy walking around the trees and tripping over logs and stuff like that. But that was kind of my progression of a lot of success right early on, and then finding sellers and being like, all right, this is what I like doing.
That's awesome. I mean, speaking for, myself, when we went to Digstock Mini in North Carolina last year,
Sure.
which, a lot of the home sites are in the field. So, right, not too much different than Michigan or Nebraska, walking lines and everything. But it was really cool because a lot of the earlier home sites that they had, and even some holes that we had seen on LiDAR, were tucked deep back into the woods. And unfortunately, we weren't able to kind of get anything to come to fruition out of those sites back there. But just the change of scenery, is nice.
Right.
I think it would be really cool closer to northern Michigan if there was some older settlements up there that had been in the forest and everything.
Yeah.
Especially living here in Nebraska, where I can see my car dealership where I work at 20 miles away.
Right.
It would be awesome to get into the woods and to be lucky enough to look for colonial relics. I think that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, and then, I mean, the thing you have to remember too is these old cellars in the woods that I enjoy being at so much, like, it wasn't the woods in the time, right?
Exactly.
It was all fields. It was just like the places that you typically go to, right? It was all just big open fields, but they've just been abandoned for so long that it became forest again. And it's something that you kind of have to keep in mind when you're out in the woods, because it's like there's stuff under all these trees that, like, you can't get. It's like, maybe someday somebody will clear cut it again and all that stuff will come to the surface. But for now, a lot of it's probably 50% of it's locked up.
I mean, hey, I've yet to run into that problem here in Nebraska, like I said, but maybe someday.
Yeah.
One of the things that I know I wanted to talk about specifically was I really think you're an excellent storyteller through your videos, and I know a lot of
Thank you.
other people do as well. I was hoping you'd be able to share with us kind of what your favorite story is that you've been able to not only put out there, but to be able to explore personally too.
Yeah. Well, that's an easy one. Hands down, it's the Anna Leonard pendant that I found.
That's what I thought. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's an easy choice, right? Because a lot of times I try to do as much research as possible ahead of time before I go to a lot of these places. And sometimes it's just, he was a blacksmith, or he was a sleigh maker, or, that's kind of the bulk of the information you have. But when I found that pendant, I didn't have any information about the place ahead of time. I knew I knew when they were there, and that was about it. And then I found the pendant, and it had a name and a birth date on it. And it was like, I do what everybody would do. I went home and I Googled the name, and it was like all of this information. I was like, wow, I have to go as far as I can with this. And then as I did that, I was like, I have to make just its own video about this. I wish I had this information before I went, and then imagine finding the pendant with the name of the research I did, right? But it would have been impossible to make that connection ahead of time. But yeah, that particular pendant with the name and a birth date on it from the 1700s is without a doubt like the most research I've ever done on one individual. And I was just lucky that she came from a family that actually had a book written about them, because they were so prolific in the town that they were based in. There was so many family members, and they all were important in some way. So there was a lot of information on them. Not so much on her. I kind of had to do my own research on her, but she ended up in Michigan. Which is pretty interesting. She moved out there in like the 1820s, I think. And she was like, I made the connection in the video. I wanted to try to make this a strong point, where her like triple great grandfather was coming over on a ship from England. And then here in the 1800s, she was then a pioneer, one of the first to go to the Michigan territory. So it was kind of interesting. She lost her little pendant in Vermont, of all places. She was based in Massachusetts, went to Michigan, and for some reason I found her pendant in the mountains of Vermont. But yeah, that's without a doubt the most I was able to do for research, but also the most enjoyment I got. We were just talking a little while ago, having like this eureka moment and having like an adrenaline rush when you learn something new. When I was doing the research on her, I would like find a new like ancestry page on one of her family members, and it'd be like, wow, like here's a whole rabbit hole I get to go down, like trying to figure out who these people are and why they did what they did. And yeah, without a doubt, that was the best one, the pendant.
Do you recall where she ended up in Michigan? Like, because
I'd
there's
have
a
to go back and watch the
street here
video.
in Grand Rapids, so I mean,
It was outside Grand Rapids. It was
Really?
Southwest, I think. I'd have to go back and watch the video. It's been over a year since I made it. But yeah, it's close by.
Interesting.
Small world.
Yeah.
Small world. Yeah, and to think that she traveled in a wagon
Yeah.
by horses, you know, dragging from Massachusetts. It's crazy. People did amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
The resiliency is just, you know, I mean, especially out here, you know, I have the opportunity to kind of learn more about the Oregon Trail and the different sections of the
Sure.
Oregon Trail. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to dive too much into that yet. But, you know, just, yeah, that's not something you get too much in Michigan or, you know, Vermont per se. You know, this is where pioneers were made, you know, going all the way
Absolutely.
across country, not knowing if they were going to make it the next 300 miles or not. And I'm sure there's a ton of a ton of history to be found out here on it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, that's stuff we learned about in school.
Right.
Being able to stand on the spot where that stuff happened and find stuff from those people, like, doesn't get any better than that.
I know a lot of, at least a lot of my friends who do metal detecting and watch your videos, one of their favorite stories is the vault of Negrano. You know, kind of the thing that maybe was, but probably wasn't. You know,
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't. But
no.
but you know, it's in an interesting story, because when we started it, we didn't know how we were going to end it.
Right.
And it was very much like the last, like, all right, how are we going to end this? And then we did a deep dive and more research, and we're like, oh no, like it was all based on a fictional story. And I guess that's how legends are made, right? It was a fictional story in the 1800s, and somebody probably grew up remembering the story from childhood and parroting it as if it was a real thing, and somebody else heard that and parroted it again, and it snowballs until 2019, and Eddie's like, hey, I heard this story about this pirate. Anyway, yeah, no, I had a lot of fun. That's probably the most fun I've had trying to create a story out of just kind of pieces of research and trying to say, all right, well, how are we going to make this into a series? You know, we have to kind of follow in the footsteps of the people that tried looking for it before us, because, you know, getting psychics and doing the dowsing and doing all that stuff, like, Eddie and I don't believe in any of that stuff, but the people who looked for it before us did. So we're like, oh, let's give it a shot. And we didn't find it because it wasn't real, but it was fun trying, you know.
Oh yeah. Imagine, you know, if you were up on the top of that mountain and then you just happened to stumble over it, you know, wouldn't that have been something? I mean, it would have made for great YouTube, obviously, but
Yeah,
for the story too, to have that just, you know, moment of holy cow, it's real. I think that
yeah.
would be amazing.
And I think that that obviously would be amazing if we found a treasure in the mountains. But I think that it's a far more interesting story that there are all of these treasure stories that all kind of stemmed from the same moment, where Captain Kidd, who was a real pirate in the end of the 1600s, he hid treasure on Long Island, like for real, and like somebody found it, and he was that was stolen treasure, and he got hanged for it. And it was a really, really big important moment, like at the turn of the 18th century. And from that sparked all of these treasure myths that for sure are not real, but they're all so similar, of a guy hiding treasure up in the mountains. Was it Captain Kidd? Was it somebody else? It was definitely a Spaniard. It was like, and they're in Maine, they're in Rhode Island, they're in Connecticut, they're in New Hampshire, they're in Vermont, they're everywhere. And it's the same story. DeGraw was one of those, you know, it came from that same moment of a real pirate hiding real pirate treasure. And I actually just got an email or a message on Instagram last week from a guy he's writing a graphic novel on that same story, but it's not the
Wow.
one. It's not DeGrau, but it's the same thing. And I was like, oh, that sounds very familiar. Like I know all about that. But this one, but he has like a map, and there's like little pins on it everywhere where the same story kind of shows up. It was just there was like a treasure hunting craze in the early 1700s in New England. But it's a great story. It's a great story. Maybe there's more out there. Who knows? Maybe Captain Kidd actually did hide more treasure somewhere, and it's just waiting to be found. It won't be me finding it though. I'm done with big treasure hunts like that.
One of the people watching, Brad, would like to know what you did with all of your garnets that you found.
I've got them in a tub up with the rest of my treasures. I haven't done anything with them, except I take that back. I did take one of the nicer ones, and I have some whetstones for like knife sharpening, right? The different grits, and I tried rubbing them on that, like you would polish a gemstone, and it just made them worse. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to do this. I don't know what I'm doing. You need like a spinning plate with the special articulating arm and stuff to do gemstones, which is a hobby that I'm not interested in getting in right now. But that's it. I guess I could get them set in jewelry of some kind, but I haven't yet. They're not like gem quality garnets. They were just fun and exciting to find because it was something we were talking about before. I get excited about things that I've never held in my hand before, and garnets were one of those things. So I've got them in a tub with the rest of my treasures, and I stare at them every day when I walk by them, and that's about it.
There's a lot of people commenting on your camera work, and I know we talked offline about your setup and what you use.
Sure.
Maybe we could talk about that a little bit, because you are clearly one of the better, videographers or cinematographers.
Well, thank you. So I have no videography background whatsoever. I have a music background, which is kind of in the same, department of schools, I guess, but I've never learned how to do the video stuff. I just made it up as I went along. You could see from my earlier videos, I had like the cheapest little flip camera you could buy in the early days. But very recently, within the last year or so, year and a half, I've really tried to get it as good as financially possible. So I have a Canon M50 camera, which is actually the one I'm using right now. And that's kind of my main camera for pointing it to my face and talking, and a lot of the B-roll. And it is a DSLR camera, and it's not the stock lens that comes with the camera. I got a 22 millimeter f2 lens, which is not only much smaller and closer to the camera, it doesn't poke out a lot, but it also makes the background like super blurry, which is what I think makes an image look better. It looks more professional. So that's kind of my main camera. I have a microphone, a Rode microphone that I put on top for my audio, and I carry that around on a tripod on a leather strap on my back. So I'll be metal detecting along, and I got a good target, or I don't bother getting the camera off. I just dig the hole, find the thing, and I was like, all right, I get to film this, and I can take my camera off, set it up on the tripod, pointed at my face or pointed at the ground. And that's my main camera. And I also carry a second camera, which is an Olympus TG4 or 5 or 6. I'm not sure which one this is. But this one is like totally waterproof, shock resistant. I can drop it. I can get mud all over it. It has a lens cap. And this one I have on another little mini tripod that I usually have kind of stuck in my backpack belt strap. And so I get a good target. Just recently, this last year, I started doing 2 camera angle moments where I find something I'm really excited about, and I'll have a camera pointing at the ground, and I'll have this camera pointing at my face, and I can flip back and forth between those 2 shots. But just on my trip to Europe, I did everything that way. Everything I found, I had 2 cameras going at once, because I noticed, looking back at my old videos, like a lot of, like the bulk of my video is my hands holding the thing and me talking. I was like, it'd probably be better if like you could see my face as I'm talking. Like obviously the thing I found is important, but being able to see my face as I'm talking seems better than just talking with my hands the whole time. So I think from this point on, I'm going to try to always film with 2 camera angles. It's going to fill up a lot more hard drives and a lot more editing work for me. But I hope people just won't get sick of my face. I think it'll be a better thing in the end. But yeah, so I have these 2 cameras that I carry around, and then I have the drone, which is a DJI Mavic Mini, which I don't bring every time. Hopefully people aren't disappointed by that. Don't ever ask how the sausage is made, right? I'll bring the drone out like once a month maybe, and take a whole bunch of drone shots, and then just sprinkle those in videos throughout the month. Make sure, as the seasons change, obviously you can't have snow on the ground in my June video. So I take drone footage throughout the year, and then it's too much to carry and too much to do in one day to get drone footage every single time. I think that's about it. The 2 cameras and the drone, and I edit everything in Final Cut, and it's about it, I think.
I was going to ask you. Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, are there times you kind of think to yourself, wow, I'm messing around with all these camera shots and doing that at every dig, and you're thinking, are there sites you just wish I'm not going to even roll film, I just want to dig and enjoy the day? Are there times when you do that anymore?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I like, it's hard to not compare yourself to like the really popular guys on like YouTube, and like they don't do any of the stuff that I do. They're just like point and shoot one camera, just talking into it and go. And I'm like, I should just do that, right? Like if that's the way to have 1 million subscribers, maybe that's just what I should do. But I try to every single time, every single video, like make something that I'm like really proud of, that hopefully I'll be able to watch like 10 years from now and not cringe when I watch it. Like I do the videos that I made like 2015, 2016. I watch those, I'm like, oh God. But I'm trying to now make videos that will stand up the test of time, and yeah, sometimes I go to places, and the truth is sometimes I'll go and I'll just not do any of the B-roll, and I'll just not talk into my camera, and I'll just metal detect and find stuff and just kind of film the ground. And then I'll do all of the stuff at the end, of the end of the day, if there's time. I'll do the intro, I'll pretend like it's the beginning of the day. Hey everybody, I'm at this new place, like I hope I find something. And because I just have too much fun finding stuff, and then I have to like, well, and I got to make a video out of this, and you've got to kind of film all that other stuff kind of at the end. And sometimes you don't film that stuff at all, and then you don't have a video. But sometimes it happens. Sometimes you are having too much fun,
which is never a problem either.
No.
So from the comments here, Mike wanted to say that it's pretty clear that your videos are an expression and a work of art, and that's really cool. More of the same, right? It's kind of been
that's what I'm trying to do, is try to make it. I didn't want to say work of art because it sounds kind of conceited, but that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make it enjoyable and add the music and the B-roll and make it as cinematic as I possibly can, as cinematic as you can make a metal detecting video on YouTube.
Right. And you do make and produce your own music and everything as well, right? Because that's where your background is.
Sure. Yeah. I went to school for music. I was a music teacher for many, many years. I played in bands my whole life. I own a recording studio here in my home. And when I first started doing YouTube and started kind of doing the B-roll thing and wanting to add music, like I was like, wow, you can't just put any music you want in a YouTube video and get it monetized. Like they don't want you to do that. It's like, well, I've got a bunch of my own music, and actually a lot of the first music I was putting in my videos were clients' music that I took the vocals out of. I said, hey, can I use, like, I would record them, the bands, and I'd be like, hey, can I put your music and my metal detecting videos on YouTube? And they're like, yeah, whatever. And then I eventually started writing music specifically for my YouTube videos. And musicians can probably tell this, but most of the music on my YouTube channel, they're just like 8 bars of music that just repeats for like 4 minutes. Like they're not songs. I mean, really, right. They're just looping background music. It's like music. And I was making one like a week, like one per video for a while. I think I've got about 40 songs now, and I haven't made a new one in like a year, but they're all starting to get kind of stale. So I think I'm going to start making some more. But so I do just record a couple tunes. I do all of the music. Some of my buddies would help me out occasionally. But I would just bust one out and put it in the video, and you can kind of make them to fit the mood, of whatever's going on in your video. And like I said, I haven't made one in about a year, but I think I'm due to start making some more.
I'd be looking forward to that. I love your music.
Thank you.
I mean, there's a lot of people I know that do. A few more questions here. One from Mark. He wants to know how was the vending machine baguette, with an LOL behind that.
The vending machine baguettes were surprisingly fresh and delicious. And one thing about France, like a lot of the cliches were like really true. Like we had baguettes with almost every meal. There was a lot of wine and a lot of coffee in teeny tiny cups. And people say all of the things that obviously they're French, but like my Uber driver, as I was leaving to go home, he said, "Bon voyage." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." I'm like, "Bon voyage." I know what that means. But no, the baguettes were delicious. Even though Chill Bill like stuck it up in his armpit, I couldn't tell. It was delicious.
Oh, wow.
Good. Another question from Matt and Detector Ben. They would like to know what your white whale is.
My white whale. Something that I've always looked for, but never found. Like I have a bucket list of things that people in the hobby think you have to find, right? Like you have to find George Washington's inaugural button. You have to find gold coin, right? You have to find a lot of these things that everybody wants to find. I don't really have a lot of interest in finding a George Washington inaugural button. Like, I don't know why. It seems like there's a lot of them out there. And if I find one, I would be excited, but that's not at the top. I think maybe a tree shilling I would be very excited about. But honestly, the things that I don't know exist yet are the things that I get most excited about when I find them. When I was invited out to this like Native American village from like the early 1600s, finding those things, like I didn't even know like that point in history even existed. I didn't know those things would be at the top would be my white whales, until I found them. I was like, wow, this stuff is crazy. And, a Roman coin, you obviously can't find those in New England. Going over to Europe, like you find those things and just think about how long they've been in the ground, like the people that dropped them, those types of things. So there's no easy answer, unfortunately. I don't really have a white whale, probably a tree shilling, but that's like an easy answer because everybody wants to find a tree shilling. But really the complicated answer is I don't know. I'll know when I find it, maybe.
I think that's a good answer. I really do.
Yeah. Maybe like I would love to find like not because of the monetary value, but I would love to find like a purposefully stashed, like a bag of coins or something. Not like, again, not because like I'm rich, but like because like that's cool, right? You like they stuck it in a stone wall or something. You find like a little bag of coins, like that'd be crazy. Or like a message in a bottle or something like that. Something where it tells a story.
Yeah. The storyteller wants to find a story.
Right. Exactly.
I get it. Yeah, I think that would be really cool. Unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately, unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, finding a gold coin so early in my metal detecting career, it kind of, in a good way, and a bad way, it kind of opens the door for a lot of more, common things, if you will, to kind of fill up that bucket list and that white whale kind of item or coin. And that's, it's been kind of fun. Obviously there's nothing quite like finding a gold coin, and when you do it, it's quite an emotional roller coaster ride.
Yeah, absolutely. But can you tell me more about your gold coin?
Yeah, so the field that we had been to, Brian, I don't know if he had permission before or after I was there, so he either missed it or okay, so good. Yeah. I didn't snipe it from him, which is good. but we had been there multiple times, and the story kind of behind that piece of property is a little bit up in the air. It was a home site that was demolished sometime in the, I want to say 1920s or so, and it had been rumored to be sort of like a halfway house. So when people were emigrating to the West Michigan area, they could go there, stay until the township that we're from was able to portion out land for them and everything. And I don't know if that's 100% true, because that gold coin, while it is from Britain, is the only foreign coin that we found there. Everything else that we have found has been American, Indian heads, large cents, right? Shield nickels, 2 centers, that sort of stuff. And that day we were actually there. Mike, one of my other guys in my group, we had just upgraded him from a Vanquish to a Knox 800. And we're like, you know what, let's go. I'll grab a bunch of coins. We'll put them in the ground. I'll show you how they ring up, and, just, helping them out.
Sure.
And we were running around with our AT Pros, and we had been there a bunch of times before and found, a handful of Indians, maybe a largie, nothing crazy. And I can remember I had 6 coins, and I just put them all in a line. I said, all right, we're just going to bounce around. Here's these coins. You can metal detect. You can go over these. Do what you want, man. And it was very similar to an Indian head penny signal, a little bit bigger. It was about 8 inches down, but it wasn't as consistent of a VDI number as it was a consistent tone, because there's actually 2 nails in the hole. I was having a little bit of trouble finding it. Brad from the Hoover Boys, I was kind of having one of his moments, because he always said that he couldn't get his gold coin on his probe, and mine was being kind of weird too. And I popped it out, and I saw the reeded edge of a gold coin, and my heart went to my throat and in my chest, and I was like, holy cow. And that day it was so cold, it was so windy, it was the beginning of April, it was like 40 degrees and just blowing like 30-mile-an-hour winds. And I screamed at Nick, who was with me, and I said, listen, man, you got to go get the camera right now. And he had just found his first large cent, so we were already hyped up. We were already excited. And I said, dude, I got shiny. Hurry up. Let's go. Get the camera. Let's go. And, he's thinking, Chris, I didn't say holy cow. Yeah, you're right. It's a little different choice of words. And he came back, and he's like, oh, Chandler's got shiny. Let's see what he's got. And I was like, that's not silver shiny, my friend. And I mean, it was just crazy, opening it, kind of realizing it. I don't want to say I blacked out. That's not the best term to describe it, but I mean, that's kind of how it was.
No, I get that.
The first thing that I thought to do is, I've been scrutinized a lot for it, was grab a toothbrush and quick do a little light scrape of it with no water on there. And I've gotten my fair share of criticism for that, but it's all right.
Who cares?
Exactly. And after that, we just sat in my truck for 30 minutes, just like, what do we do now? Do we go back out there still, or do we, what do we do? And we're like, well, we got time. Let's keep detecting. But I can remember the feeling after that was just so bizarre, because I was out there, I was doing what I loved, and I was finding stuff, but it was like almost an empty feeling, because it was such a different range of emotions finding it. And it's almost like coming down off of an adrenaline high. You go skydiving or something, you get shot with an adrenaline rush, or storm chasing, like I like to do, get right up by a tornado, your adrenaline screaming and everything. And for me, it was just coming down, and just the whole wow of everything happening.
That's what it's all about. And when you watch that video, I'm sure you feel it all again, right?
Every single time. And the intro that I made for my channel here is, everyone in my group it's one of their best finds, if not their best find. And that's one of the things that I like so much about it, is that I'm always able to go back whenever I watch one of my videos, is, I can go through and just relive that moment for just that split second.
Sure.
And, especially being out here in Nebraska, missing all the guys, every time I watch that smile, it's just, or that video, is just a smile from ear to ear from me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's why I started making videos, is so that I could relive, not a gold coin, but relive the experiences of finding those firsts, over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here in the comments. Gene, what is that gold coin? So it is a 1836 British sovereign gold coin here. Wow. I'll throw a picture up here on the stream for anyone who hasn't seen it. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people in here that probably have, but I will throw up a picture in here. Give me just a second. It was always one of those things where it was like, oh, you hear about it, I'm sure it'll happen to somebody else. Well, we're all somebody else to somebody else. That's the thing. Let's see here. So there is a picture of it there.
Wow.
And we didn't know what it was. In the video, we go through it, and Nick actually was in and out. He's like, I think this might be a token. And I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, man, that ain't no token. Nothing comes out that solid,
Sure.
kind of looking like that. So this was, it's kind of tough to see, but this was all that I could see right here when I had originally pulled it out. And after I told him to go get the camera, and I was like, I got to take a picture of this. And
Yeah. No,
this,
that unmistakable, right?
right. This
Look at
was
that
the,
guy.
I know. I couldn't believe how good a shape it was in. Yeah, 1836 British gold sovereign. The monetary value to me is, okay, cool, whatever.
Yeah. Right. Like you're ever gonna sell it, right?
Right. But just finding it, that experience was second to none. And
Sure.
I wish I could go through that again too. I wish I could see it through somebody that I detect with, just for that pure elation of everything.
It'll be hard to top, especially because you said you found it so early on. It's like, where do you go from there, right?
And that's how I felt afterwards too. Like I found one of my first shield nickels, and I was like, a shield nickel. Awesome. It's like I'm trying to get fired up about it, but it was just like,
well, maybe someday you'll find 2 gold coins at the same time.
That's the plan. Right? I mean, it's been done before. Why not again, right? Let's see here. Adam Libby says, hey, Brad, love the videos. Cheers from Georgia.
Thank you.
Gary's metal detecting. What did it ring up as? It rang up in the high 60s, low 70s on a Garrett AT Pro. That was the machine that I've been using for the last 4 years now. So
I found my little gold coin on an AT Pro, and it was a 40, which the place where I was, we were just, it was, you make a point to dig everything because there's no trash, but it was super low. Like if I was in like a park or something, I'd probably pass by it.
Yeah, that's what, I always assumed mine would ring up, but, I'll just quick show it here.
Way bigger than mine.
Yeah. So this is bigger than a quarter. Obviously it has quite a bit of weight to it, and it is super, super thick and everything as well. And I think that's why, it rang up so good.
Sure.
Because, the smaller ones, obviously they're going to, ring up a bit lower. Which makes sense. Half dimes ring up, lower than dimes and everything.
Sure.
So you brought up the AT Pro, and the three of us here, we all moved from AT Pro to Deus. And Chandler, I know he just got his Deus 2 this week, and I haven't ordered one. I know you're already swinging one. I'm just going to get out in the open. So what do you think?
Well, I haven't had very much time with it. I went out once in the woods, and then I brought it to Europe, and I used it for 4 days. And I'm very much not like a fiddle with programs, like switch around to different coils kind of guy. I'm like, turn it on and go. And that's why I like the AT Pro so much, because it was just like, there wasn't a much to fiddle with, right? You just turn it on and you set your sensitivity, and that's it. So with the Deus 2, I just ran it on General, the first program, General 1. And I switched it from a 3-tone to a 4-tone. And as a musician, I actually changed the frequencies of the tones to be more enjoyable to listen to. And I mean, it was great. I mean, it's so hard to say this metal detector is better than this metal detector unless you have them both, right? And you go over the same target that's been in the ground. Like, I don't believe in test gardens, like burying a coin. Like, that's not real. Like, when a coin has been in the ground and it's been compacted and it's been leaching for 100 years, like, that's a different thing than burying a coin in sand and testing with your metal detector. So unless you go out with 2 different metal detectors and you check the exact same target that's been in the ground for 100 years, like, there's no way to know. That being said, the reason I love the Deus 1 and the Deus 2 is that it weighs nothing. It breaks down into my backpack. Everything is wireless. It links up to my pinpointer, and it has the feature to find my missing pointer when I leave it in a hole somewhere. Like, everything down to the cams to move the shaft. Like, I hated the little push button things on like the everybody else's metal detectors, trying to get them to the right size and push the buttons, and everything about it is like, it's like a spaceship of a metal detector. $1,600, which is a ton of money for a metal detector. But if you are like super serious in the hobby of metal detecting, like I don't think there's anything better than that, honestly. I've never used a mine lab machine personally, so I can't speak to that. But like I found a ton of stuff in Europe. Obviously, it's Europe, so there's a ton of stuff in the ground. But we were by electric fences. We were in heavy mineralized soil. We were in all of the hardest places, and it did great. I didn't have any problems. There weren't, all of the targets were nice and clear. There weren't like any like iffy ones where I dug it up and it was something amazing. Like all of the kind of iffy tones were garbage. And I don't know what else. Like I said, I've only got about 20 hours on it, so I'm not an
Did you
expert
like the
with it.
new tone profiles? Because that seems.
I didn't use it. I kind of used the Tom
Oh.
Morello guitar solo original Deus tone.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Tom
catch
Morello,
that reference?
Comparison.
Yeah. And because that's what I'm used to. And in fact, I made 2 programs on the Deus 1 that I used pretty exclusively. I had one that had no discrimination whatsoever, and it was a 4-tone. So like when I'm not on top of a cellar, I'm like out in the woods, I'm looking for just anything. Right? And any sounds whatsoever was what I'm hoping to find. And then I had a second program where when I was right on top of the cellar, very high discrimination, very high frequency, and it was a full tone. So it's just, I'm looking for tiny little things amongst the nails, right? So the Deus 2 has a mono channel, right? So it's not multi-frequency, it's just a single frequency. And I use that to load in my Deus 1 programs. And the first day I went out in the woods with the Deus 2, I was using, because I wasn't sure about this multi-frequency thing, right? It's a brand new metal detector. I wanted to try to have success so I can make a metal detecting video. And I was using my Deus 1 programs on the Deus 2, and I was like, all right, I'm finding some stuff, but let's actually switch over and use the machine like the way it was designed. And I started having way more success. And I was like, all right, well, I think I'm sold, like it was basically like having the Deus 1 and Deus 2 in comparison. And I was switching between programs, between my original programs and the multi-frequency programs. And I was like, yeah, it's definitely better. It's definitely it's definitely more obvious when there's a good tone in the ground. So that's what I've been going with General 1. And obviously there's like 12 stock programs in it. And maybe someday I'll kind of go through and experiment with those other ones. But so far, what it's like 4 to 45 kilohertz multi-frequency on General 1. And they vary as you go through the different programs, what those combined frequencies are. But, it's like 4 to 45. It's pretty good. I mean, it's a pretty wide spectrum. And wasn't really having any problems with it. So far I'm enjoying it very much so. And they're not paying me to say that.
That helps then, right? When they're not paying you to say it. Like I said, we talked a little bit before we jumped on here, being in Nebraska right now, right? It was 7 degrees today. So it's not like I can, jump out and hack a field apart too much. So yeah. That's why I'm doing my tests in a bucket with topsoil that I bought from Menards. But
yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
I got one try with it before we got snow, because I got mine a little bit early. I think I got it in the beginning of December, and I got to go out once before we got like a foot of snow, and then I got a week in Europe with it. But I know there's guys down south that are using it, and obviously guys in Europe that are having a lot of success with them right now.
Yeah, I think it's really going to change, kind of the whole, direction and future of metal detecting as a hobby. Because, obviously XP's got it figured out right now, but once these other manufacturers, I don't want to say can catch up, I don't think that's the right way to put it, but once they can take a spin on it and make it their own, I think
right
where the future of this is headed because of that machine is really, really exciting.
Right. Yeah. And, I've got a great relationship with Garrett. I found so much stuff with my AT Pro and AT Max. Like, they're hard to beat machines, right? They're waterproof. They're tough as nails. After using the Deus for 2 years, I was with my buddy Chris and Eddie at the last dig stock, and Chris was standing next to me. He's like, "Hey, hold this," and he gave me his AT Pro or his AT Max. I was like, "Oh my God, this thing is so heavy!" Like, I can't believe I swung this thing around for so long. It's like my arm's gonna fall off. The Deus is just like, it doesn't weigh anything. and I've been spoiled. I've lost all my muscle mass in my right arm. I used to be like this big, and then my other arm was real small, you know, from the swinging the AT Pro. I've kind of evened out now, both small now.
Yeah, I can relate with that. Swinging the Pro with the with the 12-inch coil on it for 10 hours a day. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything like when you're over in Europe that like I take you've been there a couple times now or no?
Never.
Or is that your
No,
first?
this was my first time, and it's
Oh,
a crazy story. Let me tell you the crazy story. So I got an email from a guy, and I did not recognize his name. And he's like, "Hey, this was last year." He's like, "Hey, Brad, you should come to France, stay in my castle." Like, I get weird emails a lot, and that was one of them. I was like, "Yeah, sure, maybe someday," but like, I'm pretty sure they weren't letting Americans into France at that point because it was 2020. And I was like, "Yeah, maybe next year." And then a year later, he emailed again. He's like, "Hey, Brad, you should come stay in my castle." And I was like, well, first of all, I don't think it's in the budget for me to go to Europe because I don't know what it costs. I looked up airline tickets and it was like pretty expensive. And like, I don't know the first thing about flying abroad. I wouldn't know where to stay. I wouldn't know how to get a rental car in Europe. Like, do you need it? Like, what do you need to drive in Europe? And like all of these things. And he's like, well, hey, this is who I am. I'm Chill Bill on YouTube. I don't know if you guys ever seen his videos. He's highly energetic, awesome guy. And he's like, I will fly you out. You can stay in my castle. I will bring you metal detecting for a week, and we'll have a blast making metal detecting videos. Okay. And he's like, you got tickets for January. You're coming in January. And I said, okay. And that's what happened. I went and I stayed with him, and he brought me metal detecting, and he's brought out Aqua Chigger, and he's brought out Nugget Noggin, and now he's brought out me. I feel honored to be in the same category with those guys in the eyes of Chill Bill. But we had a blast, and it was like, when I post the video, I think I'm going to be posting the first one next week. Like literally the first 30 seconds, he brought me out to a field and he said, go have fun. And the very first target, beep, 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 I dug it up and it was a coin from like the 1500s. And it's just like you just live here and you just do this all the time. It's like, what? And he's like, oh yeah, you're going to find a bunch of those. You're going to get bored of those. I'm like, I don't think so. I didn't, because 4 days of finding coins from the 15 and 1600s, I definitely did not get bored of it. It was incredible. But it wasn't just coins. It was finding relics and stuff, things I didn't know existed. And it was a blast. Like the guys in Europe are, it's like we were saying, it's all relative, right? Guys get excited out west about Indian head pennies. We get excited about colonial coppers. And then guys get excited about like stuff before Roman coins or whatever in Europe. It's just like, it's what you're used to, I guess. But for me, something I probably never would have done ever. This experience was gifted to me by Chill Bill, who's an incredible person. And I'm so glad I filmed as much as I possibly could, because I'm going to be able to watch those and relive it over and over and over and over again. And I will.
Yeah, I always tell people, to me, when they ask me, what do you find? What's the coolest thing you ever found? All that. I always say, and it sounds kind of like, Hallmark cardish to say it, but I believe it. The people that you meet, the relationships that I've made in this hobby,
sure,
are the best finds to me overall.
Absolutely. It's a great way to look at it. Yeah. Friendships, right?
Yeah.
It was the friends along the way.
Right. Did you find that you could pretty much, this is the perception I have, you can go anywhere over in Europe and find things, or was it a researched area like we would have to do here that you went to?
Well, embarrassingly, he did all of the work. He lived there, and he was like, I've got 4 places. We went detecting 4. I was there for a week, but we went metal detecting 4 days just because of travel and sightseeing and stuff. But out of the 4 days, he had already done all the research and figured out where all these places were. And a lot of it was like, there's a really straight road right here. And it's probably Roman, because all of the Roman roads are very, very straight. And it's not a road anymore. And so this is where we're going. And it's just like, you just find Roman stuff. It's just like everywhere.
That's so crazy.
People have been living there for who knows how long, right? 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years or longer, right? People drawn pictures in caves in France. But it's like, yeah, you're tripping over coins. Like they have 1,700 coins in their pocket change there. It's like, what big deal, right?
Jeez.
I mean, that's not really
imagine.
true since they switched to the euro, but
Right.
you know, it's yeah, it's just an old, you know, we were walking through, we went to Le Mans, which is like a city, and there was a cathedral. He brought me to a cathedral, and there was like, it was built on a Roman structure. Like the bricks were put there 2,000 years ago by Romans. And it's like the people are just lived there. They just live in houses on top of Roman ruins. It's to somebody who gets excited about things from the 1700s, because I feel like that's so old. Like they laugh at us. They're like, yeah, my house is older than that. You know, it's a different thing. Totally different thing.
I can't imagine just popping out and just, oh yeah, 1500s hammered silver coin.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, great. What else do you want to find today? You know, like what?
Right.
That's awesome.
It
Not
was an
to
experience.
not to derail or anything. Another question from the chat here. Does your wife ever detect with you? I know my girlfriend, she sometimes likes to come. She's like, give me the shovel. If you start misbehaving, I'm gonna hit you with it. I'm like, okay, I get it. No big deal. Does your wife ever go out with you or?
No, she's not interested in that whatsoever. And she's my best friend. We get along splendidly, but we just have different interests, you know. And metal detecting is just not something. I mean, she gets excited when I get excited, and she enjoys the history of things like that. But she has no desire to come out with me and do it. My boy, though, he's 5. He's like, you know, he's starting to get pretty interested in it, and we bring him out, and we find like coins in my backyard and stuff. Like he gets pretty excited about it. So give him a few more years. I think I'll put some hiking boots on him, and we'll go up and find some treasure together.
That'll be cool. So what is kind of your like research process, right? I mean, do you have the same like maps from 1700s? Do you have access to that sort of stuff to find those types of roads and home sites up in the mountains? I mean, you know, because
Yeah,
in fields, it's, you know, you can look at a map and go, yep, and mark them, call it good, and head out there.
sure.
Is it the same way kind of over there?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit different because I usually don't start from the research side. I don't start from, I've got an old map. I'm like, all right, let's try to find some houses that don't exist anymore. Embarrassingly, now at this stage, like I have a list of folks who have contacted me, and they're like, hey, I enjoy your videos. I've got a seller in my property. You want to come metal detect? Like that's the last maybe 2 years or something. I've been lucky enough. I've been blessed enough to where I don't have to do that much work as far as going and knocking on doors. In the beginning, though, obviously, I did, and so that's what I'll talk about. But I would take a map and I would say, all right, here's a house that doesn't exist anymore, and I'm kind of a shy wimp as far as going up and actually physically knocking on somebody's door. I don't think I've ever done that. Usually, it's my small town that I live in is owned by like 3 families of farmers, right? It's a very small town, and they own all the land, and I happen to be friends with one of them. I'm like, hey, can you talk to this guy for me? And he's like, oh yeah, he's a wicked nice guy. We'll get you over there. And I kind of was able to do that in my town, which kept me busy for a long time. And I'm lucky enough that I have some family members that have some property, and they're friends with their neighbors. And it's all about not having to knock on somebody's door, but trying to make other people do the work for me by saying, hey, can you talk to him for me? And like, oh yeah, sure, we're friends. And it's all about who you know, right? And then as the YouTube channel kind of slowly started rolling, people started contacting me and being like, hey, because I think that I'm different in of a lot of other people in the hobby. And a lot of people don't like me for this reason, I think, is that I just give everything to the landowner. Like, I don't want to keep anything. Like, I just want to make a video and have fun. And a lot of people, that is not what they want to do. They want to take everything home, which is, I completely understand. And they don't like that I'm making landowners think that that's kind of the way it is, or the way that I do it, that's like the way it is, right? Because it's kind of ruining the hobby for a lot of people, probably. But I enjoy just kind of giving everything to the landowner. I just want to be there and have fun and find stuff and learn about new things and tell a story and make a video. And I don't care about bringing anything home. Now, that being said, probably 80% of the time, landowners are like, oh yeah, take everything you want. Like, we don't want these horseshoes, and you know,
right. You're like,
it's,
oh, well,
it's garbage.
Okay.
Right. But that makes it quite a bit easier to convince somebody to go on their property and dig holes and take stuff out of the ground, right? If you're saying that I'm not going to be taking it, like it's all yours, like they view the whole hobby very differently, as like maybe I'm providing them a service of some kind, so that makes it quite a bit easier. But as far as the research is concerned, which was your original question, is if I have a place that I now have permission to go to, I will see the name on a map if I have access to a map, and I will hit all of my usual spots online. So I don't have an account on Ancestry, but there is a familysearch.org website, which is free, and it's just as good as Ancestry. And if you pop a name in there, you're very likely to find a ton of information on a person as far back as like 1600s in Europe, right? They have crazy databases. And I do have an account on newspapers.com, which is probably my most used tool, because it's a database of newspapers back into this, again, 1700s, and you can just type in words and it just searches through all of the newspapers. And so I did a lot of research for like DeGrau on that. I just typed in like Spanish treasure in Vermont newspapers, and like there they all are, all of the mentions of these things. So, and my Anna Leonard research that I did, type in her name, there's like a bunch of newspaper articles talking about her family and all this stuff. So I use that a lot to try to find more information about these people, what their lives were like. Maybe another very interesting thing is looking through old newspapers, you find sales of property, right? So maybe this property was for sale in like 1820, and it lists all of the structures on the property. Like, oh, there's the main home, there's like the woodshed, there's the horse barn. And then you can kind of go and say, all right, where was all of this stuff? You can, maybe there was a structure on like a back lot of the property that you never would have walked out there unless you had this information ahead of time.
Right.
So yeah, newspapers.com is probably the best resource for me for learning more about a place, and then Family Search probably for actual person themselves. But I love to do as much of that as possible before I go to a place, so that when I do find something, I can be like, this belongs to so-and-so. This is their story. This is why this thing is important. Because again, too, when you're making a video, and I am trying to make an entertaining video, like if you find a horseshoe, there's 3 more of them out here somewhere, right? But if you find a horseshoe and you say, well, this guy was a farrier and like he had a really interesting life and he held this and he made this with a hammer and an anvil, like that makes it more interesting, I think, personally. Yeah. You can make uninteresting items much more interesting when you know their story.
I think one of my favorite things is taking something where you don't necessarily find that sort of, in terms of amount of stuff. I mean, there was one field we went to, the oldest map that I have access to for this particular place is 1873. So there's a home site there in 1873. The next one, 1896, gone. Right. So obviously it was there and then gone. We went out there, we looked for probably 2 hours with 5 or 6 of us, and all that we found was about 10, small miniature buckles, right? The ones that are, about that big. And so we just like to have fun and speculate, did they bring a horse out here, put it down and leave everything on it, call it good, right? Did they bury, clothes out here and call it good? What was the point of their structure here? Why was there something here for us to just find 10 buckles,
Right. Yeah. And it's fun to speculate. And a lot of times your mind can really wander with those things. Like, is it a body? Did they bury something?
Right.
And I do a lot of speculating, because a lot of times you just can't know these things. Like, even though sometimes you have the full story, you'll find something so out of place and you'll just have to say, wow, what, and it's fun. Like, wow, how did this get here?
Yeah, that's like, alluding back to the gold coin again, right? Like all we found was American coinage and American stuff at this particular home site, and now there's a British gold coin. Why is there a British gold coin here at this home site?
Make up a good story about it. I'm sure you already have.
I like to think so. I like to think of a British family coming over. I don't know why. I always picture them angry about something. I don't know why. I just picture them angry. They're throwing that gold coin. Wow, it's just so dumb. It's better here in America or whatever. throwing the gold coin out there and saying, we're going to go get our own home site and we're going to do our own thing.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
There was something that hit me. It wasn't in my original questions to ask, but some of the videos you've done have some pretty nice illustrations when you're telling the story.
Yeah.
Who does those? Where are those? They're like graphic novel level quality. That's
Yeah. The artwork that's actually in the videos are typically drawn by a high school friend of mine. His name is John Kenyon, and I pay him for the artwork. I don't think he likes the term cartoonist. He's an artist, but I call him a cartoonist because I think it's funny. But his artwork is very, how do I say? I basically tell him, like, I want different layers. So I get a background layer and a kind of a mid layer and a front layer, and then I can kind of animate them to some extent. And he colors them for me, and he does a great job. And I used him for a lot of the Anna Leonard stuff, and I used him for the Grouse stuff. And he made a couple of my thumbnails, but the thumbnails I used, like 2018, 19, 20, they were kind of like animated. Like I did all of that, but it was just like clip art I stole offline and then like made a collage with other stuff. I wasn't drawing anything. But I paid him to make some more thumbnails as well early on. But yeah, he's just a buddy who likes to draw.
It adds so much to those. I mean, it really does.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, like, what else would you put in? If you're telling a story and you don't actually have footage of the moment and you're trying to make a video piece of artwork, like you have to depict that somehow. And the best way I could think of is asking a buddy to help me out to draw me some pictures.
I like it. A couple more questions here from the chat here, Brad. Dave was wondering what detecting events you'll be attending this year, and then kind of in a separate direction here. Chris wants to know what your day job is. I know we kind of talked about that, before we jumped on, but
sure,
go ahead.
I will be at Bone in, I don't remember what month it is. Is it in March or April? It's early this year. Which is in New Hampshire. I'll have to get those dates for you some other time. I was invited to Digstock Mini way down south, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make it. But maybe.
It is good. I will put in a positive word. We went last year.
Oh, I'm not considering because it's good or bad, but it's just it's a long drive, and I'm not sure I'll be able to be gone for another week because I was just gone for a week in January. To be in Europe, but perhaps if I can convince a friend to come with me, really, Chris and Eddie, the guys that always come with me to the events, they have already said they have to work that week, so it would be by myself, maybe. And then I think that's it as far as the events that are in New England, as far as I've heard of for 2021. If there's something in the fall, please let me know, because I would definitely attend. But as of right now, I'm definitely going to be at Bone in New Hampshire. And my day job. So if you asked me that question 3 years ago, I would say I do a lot of recording work in my studio. I teach mostly guitar privately, pretty much full time. And I also own a handmade microphone business where 11 years ago, I posted a picture of this little microphone I was making for myself because I was poor in college and wanted nothing more than to be able to record my own music on my laptop. And I couldn't afford microphones to record a drum set because, as I'm sure you know, Chandler, if you want to record your drums, you need like 12 microphones to get all the toms and the kick and the snare and the overheads and the room mics and stuff. And I was like, I can't afford all these. So I knew some very smart people. I read some books, I did some online research, and I figured out how to make my own microphone. And I made a bunch of them. And I posted a picture of one online, and people wanted to buy them. And I made a website, and that was 11 years ago. So I make these little microphones. But now, 2020, I decided I was going to stop teaching and recording so that I could metal detect more. which is like a ridiculous thing to try to tell my wife that I'm going to stop teaching to metal detect more. But in 2020 or 2019, 2020, the videos were the most popular they'd ever been. They've waned quite a bit now. But in 2019, it made a lot of financial sense to stop teaching and start making more metal detecting videos full time. And so I would metal detect during the day, and then I would make microphones kind of in the evening and at night. And now the microphones have picked up more than the metal detecting has, especially because it's wintertime, but because the videos are less popular now. So basically my main job right now is sitting at my workbench soldering all day. But obviously still putting a lot of energy into video content and trying to think up ways of making them better and trying to keep up with my schedule of 1 a week. I would love to make 2 a week, but even when I was doing it like mostly full time, I wasn't able to do 2 a week because it was just between the research and the editing and the actual groundwork, I just wasn't able to make it happen. But so mostly microphones and metal detecting right now.
How many hours would you say you put in on editing one video, just typically?
Well, it depends on the video because sometimes they just fall together, and it's like it goes very fast. It goes in like few hours of videos just comes together. And so other days it's like I'll go metal detecting all day, and all I will have gotten was like B-roll. I'm like, why am I doing this? This is crazy. And then I'll go out a second day and like actually find some stuff, and then I'll be able to use the B-roll from the day before. So technically, that video took me 2 days to film, and then the editing, it's like a grind because I'm trying to splice together 2 different days in a way that makes sense. And sometimes it'll take me 5-6 hours to edit together the video. Then you got to do the thumbnail, and you got to figure out a title that people are going to click on. And sometimes 3 days. Sometimes I'll have a great day and I'll do a ton of filming. I'll find a bunch of great. Ideally, you go and you find like 20 awesome things in like the first hour, and you're like, great, I can film B-roll, I can film all the other stuff, I can go home and edit it, and it's all done one day. But that never happens. Sometimes it happens, but it never happens. So sometimes a day, sometimes 3 days, sometimes more.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's as silly as it sounds, making metal detecting videos for YouTube. Sometimes it can feel like a real job, but most of the time it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that.
Yeah. Well, and I don't need to do that. Like I was saying before, the most popular guys on YouTube just go with a camera and just find whatever, and they get hundreds of thousands of views. And I should just do that, right? but I'm trying to make like a thing. I'm trying to make like I don't know what you call it, but I'm trying to make something that I'm very, very proud of every single week. And sometimes it takes a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I've had it before. There was one day, and Nick and I, we went out. We were just door knocking, trying to hit a yard or two. We found a yard, and we found, I think it was 7 silver dimes in one yard, and I was like, fantastic, great wheat pennies and stuff. And I found my first seeded dime that day, and I was like, great. Went home, an hour and a half later, videos put together, and it's on YouTube, good to go. And then
that's great.
Like Dig Stock Mini, when we went last year, right there is, so I shouldn't have done it the way I did it, but what I did was on Wednesday, so it was, I think, Friday, Saturday, Sunday was when the actual event was. Wednesday, I worked from at the time what my normal schedule was, so 5:15 in the morning till about 2:30, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go metal detecting, why not? Went home, took a nap, went metal detecting till it got dark, and then we left. And then we drove through the night to get there on Thursday. And, then you start out the weekend, you're just exhausted, and you're like, what was I thinking doing all this? And then you don't want to film, you're dragging your feet all the way to the back of the property. And I mean, that video, I think editing that took me, I'd have to say probably close to 5 or 6 hours, because some of the other guys were shooting footage too on their phones. So then it's getting all of that, and then the time driving there and back, and then going through the editing. And I can definitely understand it taking some time.
And it's an artist thing, I guess, because it's like a song. Like, you guys are both musicians. Like,
Mhm.
when is a song done? Like, how much time do you spend on a song until it's done? Like, until you're happy with it, right? And
Mhm.
it's just about how much of a perfectionist, I guess, you are with things. And I
Yeah.
feel that way with videos a lot of time. Like, I could make things that I'm not happy with very fast.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do that. And it's not about trying to make something that's popular or trying to make something that a lot of people are going to watch. It's more about, like, if I'm not happy with it, I'm going to work on it until I'm happy with it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I
Well, I mean,
it's
just so you
just
know, your videos are those type that at least I did this. I went to my buddies after watching the first one and said, "You got to see this guy." You know what I mean? It's like this is different. This is different. So
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, I'm not alone in that feeling. So
no,
for sure, at least in
absolutely
Michigan,
not.
I can't speak to everywhere else, but
Yeah, and I would much rather, make something different because, right, anyone with a cell phone in their pocket and a metal detector in their hand can walk around, point and shoot, put finds together, and go boop, happy,
Sure. And
happy
they do.
video.
I
Mhm.
mean, there's
Exactly right.
a ton. I mean, like you said, everybody with a cell phone can make metal detecting videos, and they definitely do. There's a lot of them out there. It's hard to find what you're looking for sometimes because there's just so many. But I think that is more about people not necessarily like trying to make YouTube videos, but more about like being able to relive trying to share these moments that they've created,
Mhm.
finding things and getting excited and be like, check this out, and wanting to share it with people, which I think is great. And that's, again, like I said, why I started doing it. But then as time went on, I started viewing it more as a way to make art. You know what I mean? And and it sounds so silly saying that because they're metal detecting videos, but that's what I've always done as a musician, as somebody who creates things for a living. As far as the microphones and teaching music and all of this stuff, like that's kind of the route that I went with it, and totally unnecessary, but it's something I enjoy. So it's like two hobbies mixed together.
Yeah.
so I, I'm not asking you to say that you have, but if you were ever, I guess, approached by XP and said, "Hey, we'd like you to be part of Team XP," or a Detexpert for Mind Lab or whatever, is that something you'd consider, or is that just not your thing? Or
Uh,
you
well,
don't
I
have
have
to answer that.
well, I have been, and I
Oh,
let's see. Do you want to go through all my history of relationships with metal detector companies? Um,
All right,
whatever.
got the pen and paper. Let's get it.
um, let me be careful with my words. No, no, I have a great relationship with all of the companies. I had a short relationship with Whites, and they sent me the MX Sport, and I used it for about a month, and I made videos with it, and I ended up sending it back because it just didn't really click, and that was kind of the end of my relationship with them. It was a great machine. It was too complicated for me, I think. And Garrett, like I said, I have a great relationship with them. I don't think they have a team anymore. Or maybe they do. But like I said, I talk with Steve, their marketing guy, pretty regularly, and I think I'm actually probably wearing a Garrett shirt right now. And I've got a bunch of their machines, and they're great. XP right now, if we want to get into the nitty gritty with XP, I have a business relationship with them where they were able to get me a day as too early, so that I could get a chance to make videos with it, and because like they want in the hands of people to show people, right, that there's a new machine and that people are using it. And then in videos in the past, this last year, it'll say this is a sponsored video, and I will
Oh,
be doing like a little commercial for XP. And I made it very clear to them that I don't want to be like on Team XP, but if they were interested in sponsoring individual videos, then I would be happy to do that with them, and which is what they chose to do. So I just kind of tell them my rate for a minute and a half in one of my videos, and And they say, okay. So the 4 France videos that are coming up, there are going to be basically four XP Deus 2 commercials in them. And that's kind of, I'd like to make it clear that like, I'm not a full-time XP pusher. You know what I mean? Like I'm wearing a Garrett shirt because it was clean, but I'm not wearing like the XP hat and the XP, I'm not like an XP dude. Although I reached out to them because I wanted to use a Deus so badly. And I was like, I would love to get my hands on one of these Deus machines. Like, can you please recommend like your favorite distributor in my area? And they hooked me up, and I was like, this is great. And because they want, because at that time I had a lot of viewers, more than I do now, and they're like, it's kind of a no-brainer to give a guy a machine when a lot of people are watching the videos and as an influencer, right? But they didn't contact me. I contacted them because I wanted to use the Deus so bad, because a lot of these guys that I really respect in the hobby, they all use Deuses. And I was like, well, I want to be one of these guys, right? So I started out with the Deus 2 years ago, and then I got the Deus 2 in the early December, and I have nothing but good things to say about it. I would definitely say, if I didn't have anything good things to say about it. And my relationship with Mind Lab was, they contacted me and they're like, hey, paraphrasing, we would like to send you a Equinox 800 and you'd be a detexpert, but you'd have to wear all of the stuff, and in every video there you'd have to really kind of push the product, and you'd have to be more active on social media and kind of go to events. And I was like, it's not worth whatever Equinox 800 is to me to kind of be the full-time Mind Lab pusher. So I said, no, thanks. And I think that's about all of the kind of relationships I've had was White's, Garrett, Mind Lab, and XP. And XP is the only one that has wanted to kind of pay for advertising in a video. Like I've had other sponsors, like this clothing company, Revolution Race. They're great. Like you say, for a minute and a half in one of my videos, this is how much it costs. And I say, okay. And they send me the clothes and they pay the rate, and it's a business relationship, right? They pay for advertising. There's been a couple other companies that have done that, but so far XP is the only metal detector company that has kind of taken me up on my very specific relationship that I want, where I don't want to be a poster boy. I just want to, if you want to pay for advertising, you pay for advertising. And so that's my relationship with XP, and they're great. They're fantastic. They're French.
That'll work. Let's see here. Just going through a couple more of the comments here. Well, yep, there's one of the cats. Dave, you're right on cue with your question. That's Otis. He's something. His favorite thing to do is walk behind a door and kind of close the door and then just start screaming like he can't get out. And that's usually
use doorknobs.
Yeah, well, he's learned how to do that too. So there was one day we didn't have the deck door closed, so he went for a walk outside real quick without us knowing. It was a good thing he stuck around and didn't make a run for it. But yeah, there's another question here that I wanted to ask you here. I don't know what your guys' plans are for time here. I mean, I could do this till 3 a.m. It's however late you guys want to go, but they wanted to know, Brad, kind of how you were getting into the leather crafting hobby, and if that's something that you still, really enjoy doing, or if you'd want to, mainstream that or that sort of stuff.
Yeah, start from the beginning here. There was a point in my life where there was this antique shop in town, and it was like this very unknown little antique shop where it was only open 3 days a week, and it was open Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And on Friday morning, I noticed there was like a line of people outside this antique shop. What is going on here? And they had these shelves that everything was $1. And these were all like resellers. They'd all wait in line Friday morning for the doors to open. They'd go in, they'd be the first ones in there for the weekend, and they would just buy everything. So I was like, I got to figure this out. So I went in, and I bought a bunch of guitars in there, not for $1, for like very inexpensive guitar amplifiers, recording equipment, microphones. And one day I found there was like 6 Case knives. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the brand Case. It's kind of a well-known knife brand, and they were stacked leather handles. And I grew up using Case knives. I grew up using stacked leather handle knives, like, you know, fixed blade knives. And I just have a soft spot for them. And I bought these, and all of the leather handles were all rotten. They're all falling apart. All of the sheaths were all rotten. And I was like, I think I'm going to try to fix these, you know, as you do, right? And I was like, I'm going to make some leather sheaths for these. And I didn't know anything about leather crafting. I didn't know different kinds of leathers, what tools you needed. And I just kind of went for it. And I made some really hideous sheaths for them. And, you know, time goes by, it becomes a hobby. You get better at it. And this last year, years ago, I started making things for metal detecting specifically and selling them on my website. So I have leather holsters for like hand diggers and pinpointers. And I make these I carry a book with me. I don't know where it is. There's one around here, but so I keep track of everything I find and like write little notes. As far as video editing, it makes it easier. So I have a leather case for that I make and sell on my website. And it got pretty popular to the point where I was like having not enough time to make all of these leather holsters and stuff. So I actually just bought an industrial sewing machine last January, specifically for leather, to do even more leather crafting. So it did kind of become a little bit of a job. I haven't actually done a lot this last year because I've been doing too much other stuff, but it was just really a very slow kind of back burner hobby until I started like making things that I really started getting happy with and proud of and excited about. And then I started selling them and people started buying them. And then I started having to make the hobby a job. That's kind of a problem I have, is I find a hobby and I get really invested and then I turn it into a job and then I get sick of it. But I haven't gotten sick of leather and metal detecting yet.
That's good.
Who knows? Maybe another 10 years I'll get sick of it. But
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that hope not.
Maybe they'll be sick of me in 10 years.
That could be. So, I mean, how late do you guys want to hang out? I mean, it's up to you guys.
It's 20 of 11 here. But we just got notified there's no school tomorrow because we're getting like a foot of snow again.
Nice. So. Why don't we do this? Why don't we take a quick? We've been streaming for an hour and 40 minutes. Let's take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll be back in a couple minutes, and we'll get refired up. What do you guys think?
Sounds good.
Sound good? Awesome. All right. Well, I will see you guys in just a second then. All right, we're back. We made it. Oh, goodness gracious. I got a wild cat under the desk that will not leave it alone. So if you guys hear a scratching noise, that's just Otis trying to dig his way out of the desk that he is underneath. Or chew through my microphone cable. One of the two. Dude, stop.
I've decided I'm going to train my dog to dig my targets for me. I think.
Good idea.
I think.
Gary Blackwell, the XP guy on YouTube, he's training his dog to find silver using its nose.
Really?
That's what he says.
I love that guy. His videos are one of the reasons I actually got the Deus to begin with. Honestly.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
His videos are really informational. I know I've been watching, I'm fresh in the Deus program, right? I mean, until this week, I've been AT Pro for the last 4 years, and I have had a chance to swing one. I swung one this fall for a little bit, and Nick has swung one for at least 15 months now. So, I kind of got to know that machine a little bit when he got it, but I mean, his tutorials and everything on YouTube are top notch in terms of the Deus too, I would say.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy. I've had the opportunity to talk to him a few times, and he was at Dig Stock, the first one, or it was Pound the Ground, or whatever its name was back then. But he was actually flew out for that one. He's a cool dude.
That's awesome.
He basically produces and films everything for himself. Is he kind of a one-man band?
He works with XP. He has an XP email address and everything. Okay. Is that what you mean?
No. I mean, does he do all the camera work for his videos and all?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, he does everything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm so excited to get the Deus 2 out and rocking. I mean, for next time I go back to Michigan, I don't know when that's going to be yet, but I can tell you that Gold Coin Field is the first spot I'm going. See if I can find another one of those there,
I hear you. That's the first thing I do whenever I get a new machine or get, the cool thing about the Deus is they do the firmware updates. So like they'll do like a big update and you're like, do you have a new metal detector? And you get to go to all the places that you've already been. And that's the first thing I did when I got my Deus 2 is I went back to a place where I've been 100 times, found a ton of stuff, and you find more. Is that because it's a different metal detector, or is it because you're going over places you hadn't gone over before? Who knows? But I know from personal experience from metal detecting in the snow that even if it's the woods, I walk through the same lanes, the same paths over and over and over again. Like, I don't know how I do it. I'll be going through a place and be like, there's one of my dig holes. Like, how am I walking the same path through all of these trees and logs and stuff over and over and over again? But for some reason I do it. And I guess that gives more credibility to using a new metal detector and still finding stuff, right? Because I'm walking over the same paths I've walked over 100 times. But but it's true. You use a different machine, you're going to find different stuff.
That's another thing that I really like about that field specifically is there's been Deuses in that field. There's been Equinox 600, Equinox 800s, AT Pros. I don't think there's been a Max in there. I don't know anyone that actively uses a Max, but I know there's been a Simplex that's in there too. And every single time a new machine gets brought in there, it always seems like something else is found, which I think is really, really cool. And, is a testament to the technology as a whole, right? Because
sure.
I know I've personally been to that field over 25 times, and, I can invite a buddy who has a completely different machine. They walk in 25 feet and go, "Hey, look, an Indian." And I'm like, huh? How did you find that there?
Yeah, it's interesting how I've given this a lot of thought, how like beginner's luck in the hobby is a real measurable thing. And I think that it has to do with people, they just dig absolutely every little squeak because they just don't know, right? As you get more familiar with your metal detector, you think you know what's garbage and what isn't. But you have to be passing by good stuff every once in a while if you're passing by a target. And people who are just starting, they dig everything, and they dig a lot of garbage and they waste a lot of time, but every once in a while you find something great.
Mhm. I would agree. One of the questions in the comments here, Brad, was, do you have a favorite site that you like to go to, or that maybe you've been to, like the one you're saying 100 times, or do you have a favorite that you go to?
Yeah, the property with the where I found my gold coin is the same property that have been to 100 times, and I had been there multiple times before I found the gold coin, and I've been there many, 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 many times since. Obviously, you walk over that same patch where you found the gold coin every time just to make sure there was another one, right?
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, and it's kind of a weird mystery place because I'm not really sure. And obviously, people lived there. There's a cellar, but I'm not really sure anything about them. I haven't been able to find any information on them. The best I can tell is maybe they were like a silversmith repair shop type place because I found a couple shoe buckles that had been repaired. A lot of the things I found had been repaired and were in the ground for some reason. So like I said, I haven't been able to find out any information on them, but my hypothesis is they there was a shop of some kind where they fixed things and it must have burnt down and things on the shelves found their way into the ground. But I found a lot of coins there. In fact, like probably all of 2018 or 2019 was in that area. It was like my whole year I spent there.
Wow.
It was just a great place, and I still go every once in a while. It's funny how short my memory is because I'll go a place like that and I won't find anything. And I'm like, what am I doing coming here again? Like, I cannot come here again. I just wasted all day. Like, this is my metal detecting day for the week, and I wasted it.
Mhm.
And then 2 months will go by. I'm like, I should go back there. Like, I bet there's something
Yeah.
else. Like,
Yep.
We all do that.
yeah,
Yep.
like maybe things are materializing as I'm gone.
Well,
The
maybe after
frosties.
hard rain or something, it
Yeah, that's
changes.
what they say, right? Rain is good.
Or the addition of a day is two. You never know.
That's right. That's right. And I did go there. My metal detecting video I posted last week was the Days 2 video. My only time I've used it in Vermont.
Mhm.
And I went there and I did find another coin. And it's hard to convey this in the video. But like the place I was standing when I found that one, I don't remember what it was, Connecticut copper George coin. Like I found many other coins like in that same, I don't know, 4 foot by 4 foot square. Like there's no reason I shouldn't have found that before. Maybe I found another coin, I got excited and walked away and I missed that one or what, but um, I definitely missed it before with not only the Deus One, but I think I probably had AT Pro there. I had AT Max there. I had a buddy with another AT Pro, which is just a different person with the same machine. But you know, you just every time you go, you find something,
Mhm.
unless you don't. But then you still come back.
Yeah. That's how it is. I know there's a site right behind my house. We actually did the research for the whole township, and I was like, "There's one right behind my house. How did I miss this for a year and a
Mm,
half?" We went there. We found handful of Indians, 5, 6, 7 crotal bells in the field there, and a couple Civil War tokens and everything. And every time I go back there, I'm like, I'm probably not going to find anything, and I still end up with another Indian or two, another fragment of a pedal bell or a spoon or a bunch of shotgun shells, and it's just like, how much
keeps you
more
coming
is there?
back.
Yeah, exactly. And it helps that it's 2 minutes away from my house, but
Sure.
um, another question from the comments here for you, Brad. What states have you been to detect? Not necessarily specifically for detecting, but kind of what states have you been to
Not
detect?
many, honestly. I live in Vermont,
Hmm.
and there was a period of time when I had some friends in the Berkshire County of Massachusetts, and so I spent a lot of time metal detecting there with them. Um, not too far away from New York, so I've spent quite a bit of time metal detecting in New York, and that's kind of just like my home area, right? So for traveling, um, Maine, I guess. And that's just like on vacation. I bring my metal detector, just throw it in my bag, and when everybody's sleeping in the morning, I'll go out and find garbage on the beach. But other than that, that's about it. I've never really done any detecting down south. Um, I don't know why. It's travel time, I guess. I
Mhm.
just assume go find some colonial coppers 30 minutes from here, then drive 12 hours to find Civil
Colonial
War stuff, I
coppers.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I would love to, because we don't find Civil War stuff up here in Vermont.
Right.
I always say in my videos that there was no Civil War activity up here in Vermont, and people always correct me because there was one incident up near the Canadian border where some Confederates came down out of Canada and robbed a bank and got caught. Like, I guess that's part of the Civil War, but there was no like battles up here, right?
Right.
So we don't find that. The only things we find are veteran things, which I do find occasionally. But I would love to go down and do some Civil War searching. It's like a huge part of what people find down
Mhm.
south. I just haven't found myself down there yet. I'm kind of like the
Right.
mountain guy, right? That's kind
Right.
of like my thing.
Mhm.
Um, but anyway, yeah, I guess just Maine. Out of my little three states here, Maine and Europe, Maine and France.
Yeah, Maine, France. Hell yeah. I mean, Brian and I, we've been fortunate. We have kind of where we're from in West Michigan. One of the smaller towns there actually had quite a few Confederate generals. I don't know if retire is the right word. Maybe settle is the
Mm,
better word. So a lot of the farmhouses, out in the country, and a lot of the older home sites that are now gone and in the fields. Finding Civil War General Service buttons, or maybe a Civil War button with an eye and three ringers. I mean, they're not too uncommon, really. I know
yeah,
Brian just posted one on his Facebook page recently, a very, very good one. I found an infantry button there this year,
sure,
and I, I think we've been very fortunate to have that sort of history.
that's great.
Yeah. What is your oldest thing you found in the United States that you can date at least? I mean, whether it's a coin or
Probably native stuff, right?
okay,
It could be thousands of years old.
right.
But the oldest, how do I say, the oldest European thing in New England, I guess, would again be from the native village where we were finding the Jesuit rings from like
Oh,
1630, around there. They were trading in, well, I think they were giving the natives the Jesuit
mhm.
rings, trying to teach them Christianity. Um, so probably that stuff. But before I went to the native village, I think my oldest coin was a William the Third. It's a 1695 British coin, copper.
Mhm.
I found that in my hometown. One of the first coins I found. Like as I
Wow.
said, I had a very lucky first few months in the hobby, which got me hooked. Right, that's what happens. Um, but yeah, I think probably the native stuff, and then um, in my area, like the colonial times. Like if you get it back into the 1600s, that's really something in my area,
Mhm.
and I was lucky enough to do that a couple times. But
Nice.
as of 2 weeks ago, I found a Roman coin from like year 250,
Right.
which is my oldest thing now.
That's so crazy.
It's
It's
crazy.
Yeah.
hard to fathom that.
Yeah, it's like I can't even imagine the way life was back then. Like they, it's funny growing up learning things in school. I don't know if this is a comment on my school or not, but like you imagine colonial times as they were like cavemen. Like they didn't know anything. Like they were just here with their campfires and their little log cabins, and they were just trying to live. They're just eking by. But like people had things pretty well figured out in Europe, like in the 1700s. Like they got here on a boat
Mhm.
by who knows what. This, I don't know. They probably had like sextants, and they had watches that were this big. You can imagine what's inside of a watch. Like they were pretty advanced, and I did not give credit to any of that stuff until I started like metal detecting and doing more research and finding watches from the 1700s. Like I never even thought about that stuff. But then you think back to like the Roman times, like they had stuff like that too, like that 2,000 years ago. Like they
Mhm.
were building stuff. Like you see the cathedrals that they built over a
Oh yeah.
thousand years ago. It's crazy. Like I don't know. It was just how uneducated I was in history, I guess. And I assume a lot of the people who don't think about that stuff kind of are in the same boat.
Yeah, I think people that are outside of the hobby, a lot of the times when, I'll show them something we find or, talk about it, they're just surprised.
Yeah.
I know the first time I found like a pocket watch, I was just amazed that, middle 1800s, they had this thing that was intricate and had sapphires, for
Yeah.
movement, and
Blows my mind.
yeah,
Do you
it's
know,
mind
do you know
blowing.
what really blows my mind the most, it's like almost proof that we're living in a simulation. So I was melting silver for the DeGrau series, right? So I melted down bullion to make silver bars. It is so hard to melt silver. Like, I
Oh
know
yeah.
people do it every day, and people did it thousands of years ago, but I had like modern technology, a MAP gas torch, a crucible I bought on Amazon. I had flux. I had 99.99% silver. I couldn't get this stuff to melt. Like, how are people doing that 2,000 years ago with charcoal? Like, it's impossible
What
what
is
they
the
done.
melting point? Like 2000 or something?
It's not even. It's like 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. And I got a torch that could go higher than that, but just like it took forever to melt silver. And then trying to pour it into a mold, like if it's not perfectly hot enough and you try to pour it, it doesn't come out, or not all of it comes out. And what a mess. Like, how did they make coins 2,000 years ago out of silver, out of copper, which I'm pretty sure has a higher melting point? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, they could do that with charcoal. But somebody figured it out a long time ago, and anyway, you could probably just buy like one of those tabletop forges, but I was too cheap. I just wanted to buy use MAP gas.
Did you think to yourself in the process, why not I just, hide the bullion, instead of making the
Yeah, it just wasn't as cool as making
right?
silver bars. And I was like, I got like 20 of the bars done, and I had like 20 more to do. And I was like, maybe I should just throw the coins in the chest and just be done with it. But I was like, no, it's got to look cool. It's got to be silver bars. And I originally, with their 1 ounce bars, they're like, I got one. I saved one for myself. This is how big it is, right? This took, I don't know, 15 minutes to melt.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
I even stamped it 999. And I originally wanted to have 4 ounce bars because this doesn't look like an ingot. This looks like a little puddle of silver. I wanted to have, but there's no way I'd be able to melt 4 ounces. I could barely melt one. But people did it a long time ago. I just didn't give enough credit, I guess.
That's crazy.
Anyway,
when the gentleman found that, what was I take it he contacted you first?
no.
Oh.
All right, so real quick before we wrap it up tonight, Eddie and I had planned to hide this thing from the very beginning. We chose the spot before we even filmed episode 1 because we wanted to make sure that the series, we knew we weren't going to find the treasure at the end, right? So we wanted to make sure the ending had a finale, something satisfying ending to the series. So we're like, we've got to, unless we find the treasure, we've got to hide our own treasure, and we have to place clues in the video starting from episode 1. So we need to choose a location, and we chose a location. And as the series went on, we're like, what if nobody finds it? What if somebody finds it like the first day? Like, what if somebody finds it and never tells us? Like, we need to set up like a trail cam. And we brought a trail cam up as we were hiding the chest at the end. And there wasn't a great place to like put it where like somebody would see it and be like, oh, treasure's got to be around here somewhere. There's a trail cam like in the middle of nowhere pointing at the ground. And Eddie brought, I'm sorry, Eddie, I'm telling this story. But Eddie brought his trail cam. I said, Eddie, you got a trail cam? Yeah, I got a trail cam. Okay. So he brings it. There were 2 compartments for batteries. One didn't have any batteries in it. So already it wasn't going to work. We somehow scrounged up some more batteries. I like took them out of something like my flashlight or something. And there was a code to unlock the camera. He didn't know the code. So, okay. So we couldn't unlock the thing. So we just left the trail cam out of the equation. And I was like, well, maybe we should buy like an Apple AirTag, like stick it in there just in case somebody takes it and we can see where it goes. But then I learned that if you hide an Apple AirTag on somebody, like their phone lets you know, like you're traveling with an Apple AirTag, like you can't track people like that. They figure that out, like
for legal reasons.
Yeah, I'm sure. So like, well, that's not going to work. So we're like, we're just going to hide it. And if somebody finds it, great. If they don't ever tell us, I guess we'll just never know. And it was like 5 days later, I got a message on Instagram, and some guy was like, he just sent me a picture of him and another guy, and he was in a uniform, and he's like, we found it. I was like, that's it, you found it. And it was, I don't know if you saw that last episode, but the guy who found it had to go through TSA, and there was like this big thing. They had to search the box full of treasure, and one of the TSA guys messaged me on Instagram, and like I didn't understand what was going on. I was like, did you find it? Or like, who's this other guy? And he's like, oh no. I was like, did you film it? He's like, oh no, I don't think he filmed it. And I was like, oh wait, so you didn't find it? It was this other guy? And finally, maybe 24, 48 hours later, the guy who actually found it messaged me, and he took a ton of footage. He was like the perfect guy to find it. He went on this crazy adventure. And anyway, it was the perfect ending to the series. I think I feel like, even though people stopped watching the series, I feel like I'm so happy that it's done and that I ended it in the way that it ended. And the guy who found it was incredible. But getting that message on Instagram from the TSA guy, it's like, what is going on right now? Like, the guy flew on an airplane to get here to find, and he found it because it snowed. And I was like, nobody's going to find it till spring. You know, like nobody's going up there to look for it. They're definitely not going to find it because of the snow. But he did it. And in fact, like 3 other people went looking for it and couldn't find it. They emailed me. They're like, hey, I'm pretty sure I'm in the right spot, but I couldn't find it. And I was like, I don't know. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. I guess you'll have to wait till spring to find out. But
that had to be a little edifying, though. I mean, part of you had to go, hey, I do have a following here because this guy did all this, you know.
Yeah. And it's funny because we had no idea. There was a very real possibility just nobody was going to go look for it. You know, it was funny. We were like, Eddie and I were discussing like how much treasure would be worth it to go looking for. And we settled on $1,000 of silver. But I would like mentioned to one of my buddies, I was like, what do you think of $1,000? He's like, that's not even a stimulus check. Like, I know, but I mean, it's a lot of money for, you know, in silver. It's kind of exciting, don't you think? He's like, yeah, I don't know. And so we were like, I don't know if anybody's even gonna go looking for it. But a bunch of people did, it made us very happy that people were watching along and got invested in actually going on their own treasure hunt, you know, looking for the clues, figuring out the clues, and finally putting in the legwork and hiking in a place I wouldn't even try to go there in the snow, but they did, and they found it. One of them found it. But anyway,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like it was awesome. Hopefully other people will find the series down the road and also think it's awesome. And then there's another chest in the same spot. So if you are able to decipher the codes and go find the location, you get a t-shirt and a couple other little things if you find the chest.
Nice.
Forever, or until I stop wanting to buy t-shirts for people.
Nice. Well, we'll wrap it up here tonight, Brad. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I had a great time. Yeah, absolutely. We're very happy that you were here. It was really awesome to kind of get to know you a little bit more and get to know the storytelling of Green Mountain a little bit more as well. And like I said, thank you very much, Brian. I don't know if there's anything you want to say.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. I think there's a lot of people online checking this out, and there's gonna be that are like, wow, you know, they watch your videos and they're like, well, I want to know more about Brad Martin. Who is this guy? And this is a good way to do that. So,
well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you guys and your followers as well. And I had a blast. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Appreciate it. Sounds good, sir. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Appreciate it. I went ahead and put Brad's website and channel in the description of the video as well. So if you didn't know who he was and you do now and you're like, wow, I got to go watch his videos, links for all that stuff is in the description. So appreciate y'all tuning in. Everyone have a good rest of your night and have a good weekend for me. Alrighty. Peace out, everybody.
coolest gold thing ever. It's freaking awesome.
Welcome to the club, buddy.
Holy shit, it is. No way! No way! Dude!
We just pulled out a SLQ, 1927.
Looks pretty sweet.
Did you see it?
Oh my god! Be old, be old.
1856.
Wow! Holy crap!
Shit.
Dude!
That's a good way to break into the 1800s.
1899. He did it!
Dude, I bailed out of my tree to dig this.
Oh, that's a flying eagle, I think.
1858.